Welcome back. David Bowie was a pop icon to all of us, a lifeline for many of us, and an enigma to most of us. But what a lot of people don't know is that for decades, he'd actually been building an incredible archive of footage of his life and his work.
The only one who got full access to those archives is our next guest. And he turned it into the incredible new documentary, Moonage Daydream, which premieres at TIFF this week. Take a look.
All people, no matter who they are, all wish they'd appreciated life more. It's what you do in life that's important, not how much time you have, or what you wish you'd done.
Writer, editor, and director Brett Morgen joins us today. Brett, it is so great to have you with us. I have goosebumps just from that. Wow, thanks for being here. Now, you met with Bowie many years ago and talked about making a film, and he always knew that he didn't want to have sort of a straightforward, traditional documentary. And this is anything but traditional. It's almost like a Bowie collage, and you had, was it 5 million sort of assets to work into it? Question is, how did you know where to begin and put those pieces together? What story did you want to tell?
Well, I didn't know what story I was wanted to tell until I went through the footage. I did know I didn't want to make a biography. I think the beauty of David Bowie is there's a mystery and an enigma to him. And I didn't want to unravel that. I wanted to lean into that. I wanted to give the audience a kind of David Bowie experience. I tend to feel when I'm making a film that I want to put in everything that you can't get in a book, everything that you can't read about. I eschew facts and information for experience and emotion. So this was really designed as a very different type of movie, not a biographical film per se, but a David Bowie kind of audio-visual experience.
Yeah. It is an experience. Yeah. It's an explosion of visuals and music, and I think for diehard fans like myself, it's everything you could ever wish for, but I think people who don't even know much about Bowie will get a ton out of it. I'm curious for you, when you were going through these mountains and mountains of footage, you were a fan beforehand. Like, was there still anything that surprised you while you were going through this about Bowie?
Every day was a surprise, a revelation, inspiration, illumination. Having watched every piece of media, by the end, I was still, my mouth was wide open. People say David's otherworldly, but having seen every piece of media, I don't even know how to explain it. Yeah. I mean, he was magical.
Yeah. People saw, like, it was so fascinating, some of the footage that you unearthed of him back in the 60s, early 70s, of people thinking of him as otherworldly, like you're saying. But one of the things that Bowie has always been noted for was this sort of gender-bending style, this kind of like, you weren't sure about, you know, sort of how he defined his sexuality, his identity. And we see that approach and that kind of influence that he still has to this day when we're looking at pop stars today. So after like, what struck you about the way in which he navigated gender and sexuality?
Well, I'll say this. When I first came to Bowie, it was as I was entering puberty. And I don't know what came first, David Bowie or puberty, because they both kind of had the same effect. But he was so brave and courageous in going in front of the world and embracing gender fluidity in a way that could have destroyed his career. The thing that David taught me when I was 12 that I think we're still learning is that to celebrate our differences. That which makes us different is to be celebrated. And when you're 12 years old and your parents are trying to mold you into whatever it is they want you to be, that is a powerful message.
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. Bowie said that he was creating the 21st century in the 70s. And you've said we're really only catching up to that notion right now. What do you mean by that?
Well, taking the gender fluidity, which Bowie presented to the mainstream media as something completely commonplace in a time when it just clearly wasn't. Like many great artists, David was not a futurist, but he can feel frequencies and transmissions that were present that the rest of us would take years to pick up on. And so the world that he was describing that he was experiencing in 1971, we are just catching up to him now in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The film really feels like a meditation on life and death, the meaning of life. And while you were working on this film, you actually suffered a serious heart attack. And you say that Bowie and his perspective on life sort of helped you reshape your own life and the way that you approach your work. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was shooting a pilot for Marvel called Runaways. I left the production office on January 5th at 7 o'clock, said goodbye to everyone. Well, not goodbye like I'm about to die. Just, I'll see you guys tomorrow. And I suffered a massive heart attack at 7:30 that night. Fortunately, I was 3 blocks from Cedars-Sinai. I flatlined in the ER. I was in a coma for a week. And when I came out, the first thing I said was, I'm shooting a very important pilot for Marvel. I need to be on set on Monday. And the surgeon was like, you're not going anywhere. And I was like, no, you don't understand. And I pulled the plugs out and I went to set 2 days later.
No.
So I was not ready for the message.
Yeah.
About 6 months later, I began my research into David and ingesting David's into my brain and into my body, and I thought I was gonna hear like a guy talking about rock music and how he created his art, but what I really picked up on was his approach to life. David understood from the very beginning of his life that we only have this limited time on Earth, and to make the most of each moment. And as I was sitting there trying to contemplate my life, I have 3 young children, and I was like, what's the message of my life? That you work hard and then you end up with a cardiac arrest at 47. My kids used to give me these Father's Day cards that would say, Dear Dad, thank you for showing me your great work ethic.
Yeah.
Well, great, look where that ended. So I didn't know what the meaning of my life was or what I could present to them. And through David, I discovered a roadmap for how to lead a balanced and fulfilling life in this age.
We're grateful. We're
So
grateful that you
beautiful.
did. David, thank you so much for being here. It's incredible. Guys, Moonage Daydream opens in select IMAX theaters in Canada on September 16th and in theaters across the country on September 23rd. It's a cinematic experience you don't want to miss. We'll be right back. Hey there, wasn't that great? Do you know where you can find some equally good content? Our YouTube page. It's filled with discussions, debates, and some laughs. Head there now, like and subscribe.